Hello, I'm Jan Śrowiński and you're watching Break the Fake. They make them, we break them and tell you everything you need to know. And tonight we delve into the world of makeshift democracy, a place where Russia has a long-standing habit of taking the concept of pop-up events to a whole new level with their brand of the on-the-fly referendums. Yes, just when you thought democracy couldn't get more exciting, Russia says, "Hold my vodka," and sets up a voting booth in the middle of, say, a war zone. They've done this countless times. Illegal referendums in occupied Ukraine, including Crimea, but also fraudulent voting in other places coming under the influence of the Soviet Union after World War II came to an end. A long tradition, for sure, in the same way that Steven Seagal has a long tradition of terrible acting. And now the Ukrainian soldiers are getting into the spirit, joking about holding their own referendum in, you guessed it, the Kursk region. Because why not? If you can't beat them, join them in the most sarcastically democratic way possible, of course. Imagine this scene. Tanks roll in, not to fight, but to ensure everyone gets a chance to tick a box. Please ignore the artillery fire and make your way to the booth. You wouldn't want to miss voting on whether this land is yours or still yours, but with a new passport.
За восстановление исконных территорий.
По-офицерски.
But let's not forget the sheer absurdity of these referendums. Where else but in the wonderfully twisted world of Russian military strategy could you find armed soldiers gently encouraging you to vote for your own annexation? It's like being robbed by a very polite burglar who first asks if he can take your TV and then helps you fill out the insurance claim. And through all this, the real kicker remains the international response, or should we say, the resounding silence. On many occasions, the world was watching, popcorn in hand, as regions were redrawn, not with pens on maps, but with tanks on streets and ballots filled under the gentle gaze of an AK-47. And while Western nations never said Russian referendums in Ukraine were binding, in fact they insisted on their illegality, the response to this political coercion and fraud was generally, well, underwhelming. So, as Ukrainian soldiers gear up for their satirical referendum, we're reminded that sometimes the best way to deal with absurdity is to laugh at it, or, even better, to vote on it. After all, if you can't find humor in dark times, then really the joke is on you. Now, the joint Belarus-China military exercise staged near Poland as NATO celebrated its 75th anniversary in Washington wasn't just a show of unity. It was a flex meant to distract NATO leaders as they discussed the very real threat of authoritarian alliances undermining global security. The timing? Impeccable. It's like crashing your ex's wedding with a +1 who's also an international arms dealer. So here is NATO laying out the welcome mat for reflections on unity, and there is China sending not so subtle "we're still with Russia" RSVPs. It's not the party NATO planned, but then international politics seldom sticks to the guest list. For China, historically the cool customer in global politics, dangling its toes ever so slightly into the murky waters of military cooperation on European soil, right in Russia's backyard, well, it is a bold move, really. It's like deciding not just to play chess, but to do so in the middle of a minefield.
Беларусь и Китай установили наивысший в истории уровень отношений всепогодного и всестороннего стратегического партнерства. Нас с председателем Си Цзиньпином связывает глубокая и искренняя дружба. Очень давняя дружба.
Мы должны на высоком уровне поддерживать политическое взаимодоверие. На протяжении 32 лет с момента установления дипломатических отношений сотрудничество Китая и Беларуси вне зависимости от внешней конъюнктуры всегда демонстрирует жизненную силу и энергию. Самая главная причина этого в том, что у нас высокий уровень взаимного доверия. Господин президент, вы как самый любимый политик белорусского народа на протяжении длительного времени относитесь к Китаю дружественно.
NATO's got its eyes peeled, looking for clues. Will China start supplying Belarus with, say, military tech or joint nuclear exercises on the cards? So many questions, and every move China makes is like another piece moving on a geopolitical chessboard. Meanwhile, Belarusian leader Lukashenko plays the wild card. He's the guy who insists he can dance to his own tune while borrowing the Kremlin's orchestra. Hosting Chinese troops might be his way of proving he's not just another puppet on Putin's strings. So here we are, watching this unfold, wondering if NATO's next move might involve more carrot, less stick, or if it's time to shuffle the deck entirely. Now, at what may be dubbed the drone drama of the decade, Moscow has experienced one of the most significant drone attacks since the start of the conflict. According to Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin, the night and morning skies were less about stars and more about dodging unmanned aerial vehicles, with a total of 10 drones downed over the capital and its suburbs. And the Ministry of Defense is patting itself on the back for shooting down 45 drones across Russia, including 11 over the Moscow region, all the while assuring the public that there were no casualties and no damage.
Ой, блядь. Вот тут где-то включится.
It's like a bad sci-fi horror flick where drones are the new pigeons in Moscow's skies. Actually, it gets a bit absurd for a Hitchcock remake, so perhaps Sharknado is a better analogy. Anyway, the Russian authorities are trying their best to present this as just another day at the office. No harm done, no foul, just a little drone ballet over the Kremlin, right? If this is their idea of light entertainment, I think I would prefer the actual fireworks. And for now, tonight's episode of What the Hell Russia, where even funeral directors are becoming war strategists. That's right, Kirill Suvorov, a granite workshop owner from St. Petersburg, known for crafting memorials and tombstones, is now offering motivational speeches for the living, I hasten to add. I guess when your day job involves making gravestones, you might as well help speed up the customer pipeline, right?
Так, хочется обратиться к мужскому населению Курска. Вы там что, вообще, блядь, в края перепутали? Вы куда уезжаете, родные? Если, блядь, у нас все мужики будут включать заднюю и уезжать из городов, на которые будут наноситься удары, блядь, и так далее, что вообще будет? Вы что творите? Вы не можете взять оружие в руки? Ну тогда возьмите лопаты, блядь, копайте пацанам окопы. Я не знаю, развозите питание, блядь. Куда вы уезжаете? Отдайте машины, блядь, свои пацанам, которые, сука, сейчас будут класть жизни свои, блядь, за то, чтобы отбить Курск. Дайте им гражданские тачки, чтобы они могли передвигаться на них хотя бы. Еще что-то. Я смотрю видео и вижу, как вы уезжаете. Вы, блядь, конченые. Я не знаю, у нас в Петербурге сообщество наших ветеранов сейчас все на нервах сидит и думает, как бы им взять оружие и поехать, как договориться, чтобы разрешили. Остановитесь, блядь!
So this is how Kirill took to the internet, calling on the men of the Kursk region, who are currently fleeing from actual warfare, to stop running and instead grab their weapons. Or, you know, shovels. Because if you can't shoot, you might as well dig some trenches. His rallying cry was something like, "What are you doing running away? Can't handle a gun? Grab a shovel then." It's truly inspiring stuff if your inspiration is a mix of desperation and a complete lack of self-awareness, unless it is a thinly veiled Warhammer reference, Death Corps of Krieg, anyone? But somehow, I don't think so. And when journalists asked if he would join the fight himself, our brave tombstone entrepreneur dodged the question faster than Russians dodging the draft. He certainly isn't about to dig his own grave, that's for sure. You know what Stephen King said in Pet Sematary? Sometimes dead is better. You can't just make this up. Well, you could, but why bother when reality is this absurd? And with this, we conclude this episode of Break the Fake. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.